835 field.
Hey yo.
This is the Fantasy Den, presented by Buffalo Boxing Club and RotoSurance.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Fantasy Den. I'm your host, Josh, and I'm here with Tom. We're getting ready to talk about Week 12 and all the action coming up. We're also going to get into the games from yesterday on Thanksgiving Day, talk about the fallout from that. Before we get into starts and sits, Tom, let's talk about some notes from around the league, because there is a ton of guys who have a questionable tag right now. It's Friday, the 23rd, so we got to talk about that. There's going to be a couple to keep your eye on. They're going to be game time decisions. Robbie Anderson, questionable with his ankle. He's expected to play, but it's going to be limited if he's out there. So I don't think you feel comfortable putting him in your lineup yet. Not in daily, not in any kind of PPR league. I think you want to stay away from him this week. Big one here, Melvin Gordon. He's questionable. There's a good chance he might sit only because of where the Chargers are right now with their record. They're pretty comfortable. They don't need him this week. But he's battling a hamstring again, which is resurfaced. He's battled this throughout the season so far. And the bigger worry is now he's got a knee injury. So it's something to keep your eye on. Eckler is going to be a great daily fantasy play. He should be cheap. And he should be put in your lineup. Expect RB2 numbers from him in this matchup. Doug Baldwin, questionable with the groin. He's re-aggravated that. We've talked about him all season long. He hasn't been 100% healthy all season long. This game's no different for him. He's going to be a true game time decision. You want to stay away from him this week, though. Playing the Panthers, don't like it. Jimmy Graham broke his thumb last week. He's likely to play. People are saying that he looked good in practice catching balls, so that's encouraging news. The Packers need all of their weapons out there this week against the Minnesota Vikings in a division game. Randall Cobb, hamstring injury. He hasn't played since week 9. There's not a lot of clarity on his likelihood to play this weekend. Again, I think that if he plays, he's going to see limited snaps, not a lot of action. He's going to be a risky play, so
he hasn't done enough this season to warrant starting him even if he does play, really.
Alex Collins, who fell off the face of the earth last week, and Gus Edwards came out of nowhere. Gus Edwards in last week outtouched him 17-7. So that's very scary. We both like Collins in going into last week's matchup, but he's got a foot injury coming out of last week's game, so nothing looks good about him this week.
Good matchup, but yeah, it's tough to trust Collins after what happened last week and then the injury.
Pierre Garçon is going to be sitting out this week with a knee injury, which is unfortunate because they have a juicy matchup against the terrible Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. 2 questionable tags, Gronkowski and Brady. This is typical of the Patriots. Pretty much all their guys are always somewhere on the injury report. Brady got apparently sick. That's why he sat out today's practice. He was limited yesterday. You know he's going to go, though. Gronkowski, we haven't seen in 4 weeks. He's expected to play this week, battling the ankle, battling the back. Coming now into the later part of the season, I think you're going to start to see him get out there a little bit more. This is a guy they need for the playoffs. Expect to start seeing him now that he's healthier.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets are obviously a bad team. Going against Gronkowski this week, he said he's excited to play, he's ready to play. You know, I don't think the Patriots have to do a whole lot to beat him, but I can see them trying to get Gronk in the end zone. I definitely see that happening this weekend.
All right, Tom, let's get into these starts and sits for Week 12. Why don't you go ahead and start with your start and sit for quarterback this week?
So for the start for me, it's going to be Cam Newton. Over the last month, the Seattle Seahawks have given up the 2nd most touchdowns at quarterback and the 4th most yards. And I just like the fact that Cam Newton's at home. I feel like he's going to have a big game here against Seahawks. It's going to be sort of a back and forth matchup, but I just feel like Newton's going to be controlling this game. So I really like him a lot this week. Sit for me. This is tough to sit him, but I say this is more of a temper your expectations. Phillip Rivers. Quarterbacks against the Cardinals this season have thrown 12 touchdowns to 6 picks all season long. And I just don't expect a huge game here. You said Melvin might sit, which obviously hurts the Chargers offense. Is such a big part of their offense, and Phillip Rivers throws to him a lot out of the backfield. So I don't expect a big game from Rivers here. I get it if you're not sitting him and you need him. I understand that, but I just wouldn't expect a huge day from him here.
Yeah, my start of the week, it almost pains me to say this, and I might really hate myself for this later. It's Jameis Winston. And we've seen the good, we've seen the bad from Winston. We've seen him get benched. We've seen him take the job back. They're playing the 49ers this week, and in my mind, he's got to get it done this week. This is a good matchup for him. They're the 9th easiest opponent for quarterback. So I like Winston this week. I'm expecting a big game from him, over 300 yards, over 3 touchdowns. So I really like him this week. I think he gets it going this week. He needs to.
It's a good matchup for him.
My sit of the week is going to be Mariota. It's no surprise here. He's had a tough season. Titans in whole have just not looked very talented on offense. They've been riding the defense a lot. He's coming out of a game where he threw for 85 yards and a pick. Not to mention has been battling a neck injury this week, so he's going to probably play. But they're playing the Texans. They're the 5th toughest match on QBs. So there's nothing good about this matchup for him. I don't expect him to do much in this game. What about your running backs, Tom?
So, start of the week is Marlon Mack. Dolphins on the season have given up third most rushing yards. This game is at Indy. And the Dolphins, like I said, they've just been getting eaten alive by the running back. They haven't been able to stop anybody. I expect a big Mack game here. I don't think the Colts are going to have to do a lot to win the game. I think it's just going to be a handoff to Mack kind of day where he just kind of runs all over the Miami defense. I don't expect Luck to have a huge day here. So sit of the week for me is going to be Lamar Miller. They are at home, but they're playing against the Titans, who, in terms of average fantasy points per game, they're the 4th best against the running back. And over the last 4 weeks, they've given up the 4th fewest rushing yards. Only 3 teams have given up less rushing yards than them. I don't expect a big day from Lamar Miller here.
For me, my start of the week at running back is going to have to be Nick Chubb. He's coming off a monster game where he put up over 200 combined yards and 2 touchdowns. He's been electric. He's been awesome ever since they got rid of Carlos Hyde. I expect more of that this week. He's going up against the Bengals, who running backs are averaging more points against them than any other team in the league. So he's got a great matchup. He's running red hot, and they're going to keep riding him. I don't think they're going to put too much on Baker Mayfield's plate. So I really like him. I actually had Miller as my sit of the week as well. So I'm definitely right there with you on this. So on the fly, I'm going to have to say Dion Lewis. I just don't like the Titans this week in this matchup against the Texans. I don't think Mariota's going to be able to do much, and I think that it's going to be a tough game for Lewis to get it going here as well. Who do you have for receivers?
So start of the week for me, it's kind of twofold here. I'm going to say Julian Edelman and Josh Gordon to kind of cheat on it. I think both of them are going to have big games. Only 7 teams have given up more passing yards than the Jets this season. Like I said, I don't think the Patriots are going to do a whole lot, but I could see both of these guys getting involved yardage-wise and having good days. Their last 3 games, including the bye, target-wise, Julian Edelman, 10 targets, 12 targets, then the bye week. Josh Gordon, 10 targets, 12 targets, then the bye week. So they're both right there at the same targets. I think both these guys are in store for decent days. Yardage-wise, I don't know if they get in the end zone, both of them, but I expect both of these guys to be good plays. Sit for me is going to be Larry Fitzgerald. They're playing against the Chargers. They've given up the 6th fewest yards to receivers. They've only given up 9 touchdowns, but I just think that Josh Rosen's going to have a hard time getting going. I think Joey Bosa is going to be all over him, and the Chargers defense is going to apply pressure. Josh Rosen obviously has been very turnover prone, and really he's shown flashes, but he's obviously not consistent enough yet. So I'm going to have to sit Larry Fitz this week.
Yeah, my start of the week receiver is going to have to be Odell. They get the division game against the Eagles. The only thing I don't like is that they are playing in Philadelphia, but the Eagles secondary is absolutely decimated. And their run defense has still been okay. So I think that they're going to need to get the pass game going here. I mean, I expect Saquon to have an okay day as well, but I just see Odell putting up a big game in a division rivalry like this one. For me, my sit of the week is going to be Jarvis Landry. You know, he's just been disappointing all season long. He's only scored over 10 points once in the last 7 games. It's just been discouraging. I mean, PPR is obviously a different story, but even then, he's just not having a great season. And for me, I have to get away from him in general. Let's move into tight ends, Tom. Who do you have for your start and sit this week?
So the easy one is George Kittle. They're playing against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the 2nd worst in terms of fantasy points per game. They've given up 5 touchdowns. They should feast with no Pierre Garçon, and really the only other weapon they have on the outside is Marquise Goodwin. I think that he's really going to get going in this game. Another guy I like is Jared Cook. If there's one area to attack the Ravens, I think it's at tight end. His last 4 games, he's averaging 5.5 targets. I'll take a tight end who's giving me 5 targets a game. And the Baltimore Ravens giving it the 9th most yards to tight end position. So if there's a weakness on that Ravens defense, I think it's going to be the tight end. Not to mention that who the hell else do the Raiders really have to go to? It's Jared Cook pretty much all day long. So I think he's in for a good one. My sit's going to be Evan Ingram. Philly's given up the 4th fewest yards to tight ends. They've only given up 2 touchdowns this year. I don't see Evan Ingram really breaking out this game. He really hasn't had a great season, so I'm going to sit him.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on George Kittle. That was my start of the week here. It's just hard to get away from him. He's getting so many targets. He's the main focal point of this offense right now.
And you really couldn't ask for a better matchup.
Yeah, the Bucks on average are allowing almost 11 points from the tight end position, so he's going to feast this week on them. For me, my sit of the week at tight end has got to be Kyle Rudolph. Again, a lot like Landry, just been a disappointing season. This guy just hasn't done much. He's getting a tougher matchup here as well against the Packers, who are only allowing 5 points on average to the tight end. The Packers have only allowed 1 touchdown to tight ends as well, so that scares you because a lot of these tight ends, it's touchdown or bust. This is a guy who hasn't scored over 10 points since week 3, and ever since then, he's scored less than 6 points. So, very discouraging numbers there. I don't expect that to change this week.
Yeah, and if Rudolph is the definition of a touchdown or bust tight end.
All right, Tom, let's talk about these games from yesterday. Let's start with the Bears-Lions game. Bears come out with the win here, 23-16, starting their backup quarterback, Chase Daniel.
Yeah, he had a good game, 230 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, he came out and played better than anybody thought he would. I thought this was going to be a huge run game. I thought they were going to turn around and hand the ball off all day. I was completely wrong. That Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen had 27 combined rushing yards. They had 10 combined carries. I mean, it was not a big run day. I was off completely on this. I thought both these guys were going to have big games here. Cohen got in the end zone on the catch. He gave you 45 yards receiving and a touchdown. So still a serviceable play. He's been that good play all year long, so he still gave you the points there. I just didn't think Chase Daniel was going to do anything. Nobody really had a big receiving day here. Taquan Mizzell got in the end zone. Only gave you 21 receiving yards and did it on 3 targets. So don't think that's sustainable. Don't think anybody's going to run out to the waiver to grab him. But yeah, so not a huge day for any of the Bears. I guess Chase Daniel kind of guided the team to a win. And you might even say that Matt Stafford lost the game more than the Bears won the game. He just played poorly. He's just been bad Stafford all year long.
Well, it's been up and down season for him for sure. No touchdowns in this game for him. 2 picks really hurt the Lions. They had a chance to win this game here, like you said. The surprising thing for the Lions here was how effective Blunt was. This is a guy who, as soon as you heard that Kerryon Johnson was going to sit, this is a guy who should have been added to every roster.
Well,
this is what he does.
Well, listen, that's the thing. People knew that him and Riddick were guys to look to add, and they were wavered, but they were also playing against the Bears. So people were hesitant to add him, and I understand that. It's tough to start. And LeGarrette Blount, this is his best game of the season by far, and his best yardage. So this is the outlier. This is not something that you expected to happen. This is one of those games. So, if you started him, good. Good for you. But this is something that I didn't see coming. I don't think many people saw coming against this Bears defense. Yeah,
and that's got to be the encouraging thing here. You have to keep in mind the Bears are coming on. It's a short turnaround for all these teams. Playing on Sunday, playing on Thursday now. Early game for them. So tough on the Bears here, but Blunt, this is a guy that as long as Kerryon Johnson is sitting, you see what he does here against one of the best defenses in the league. That's got to be encouraging. He had 19 carries, 88 yards, 2 touchdowns. He just plowed his way into the end zone. I mean, this is what he does, though.
Yeah, but I don't trust this at all. I mean, this is one of those things. LeGarrette Blount, we all know better. He's touchdown or bust dependent. I mean, he's touchdown dependent. If you put him in your lineup, that's what you're hoping for. If he doesn't get you that, it's a good chance he's getting you 20, 30 yards. So, like I said, he's still tough to trust. The thing I do like about this game for the Lions side is Kenny Golladay getting you the 5 catches for 90 yards on 8 targets. And if you're watching the game, he had a chance near the end of the game where he was close to breaking one in the end zone. He's just a great receiver. He's totally, coming on to a new level this season. The other thing I like about it is seeing Theo Riddick get 7 targets, 7 catches, 48 yards, because he really hasn't done that a lot this year. And, we thought with Golden Tate leaving, he was going to slide into get a lot more targets, obviously. And that's what you want to see because that's his role right there. And the Lions, I mean, they don't have a lot of playmakers. Marvin Jones was out this game. TJ Jones didn't do anything, only had 1 catch. So they need to get Riddick going a little bit because he definitely help him in terms of playmakers. He's, after Kenny Golladay, he's probably their next best playmaker when Kerryon Johnson's out.
Let's talk about the Redskins-Cowboys game here. Division game. Coming into this game, Redskins were leading the division. Cowboys now have control of it after winning this game here. Cowboys are on a 3-game win streak, and they look awesome right now. They look like a complete team. The defense is playing lights out, front to back, so it's been encouraging to see that.
Well, it's 2 things. The defense is playing well. They've been playing well all season. They just haven't been getting a lot of turnovers. And yesterday they had 3 sacks and 3 picks, so kind of blew up in that game. They were due for it because like I said, they haven't been getting a lot of interceptions. So it's good to see that. But it's really been that and the fact that they're feeding Zeke. He's had over 100 yards in the past 3 games, over 100 yards rushing. He had 200 yards combined in the past 2 games before this one. So he's starting to come in. He's starting to look like the Zeke of old, the Zeke that we all know, the Zeke that we drafted. and that you expected. You're getting 26 carries. That's what you want to see. A guy like this, he can handle that. That's been the biggest difference with the Cowboys. And then Cooper being there, which we kind of thought maybe that'll help out Zeke, and it really did. He had a monster day, 8 catches, 180 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had that huge 90-yard touchdown where, really, he should have been tackled. He was like within the grasp of 3 Redskins.
Yeah, he's been playing awesome. He's just getting more comfortable in this offense. He's really opening up the offense for them, making Dak look better, allowing guys like Beasley to contribute. Limited contributions from guys like Gallup. I don't even say all that.
Go down. Yeah, you shouldn't say Beasley because he had 1 fucking catch.
I'm just going to leave it at that.
Well, then hold on. Yeah, and then Dak had a big game here. We thought he'd be good, but I didn't think he'd be that good. 289 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then he had the rushing touchdown. It was a great play to evade all the defenders getting in the end zone. So it was a big game for Dak. And that's been the biggest difference is Dak's been steady. They're feeding Zeke, which is their bell cow. They got to get him going. He's the Cowboys offense. He's their engine, and the defense is playing solid. So a good game all around from pretty much all the Cowboys that you expect, Cooper, Zeke, and Dak.
Yeah, on the flip side here, Colt McCoy getting the start with Alex Smith breaking his leg last week, unfortunately. And on the flip side here, Colt McCoy had a rough day getting the start for the Redskins. 268 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 picks. Really for the Redskins, it was an ugly day all around. Peterson couldn't get it going, 12 carries for 35 yards. He's kind of hit a wall here these past couple games. Last week he had the 2 touchdowns in the red zone, which was good to see, but it's a tough matchup for the Redskins here, and it showed across the board. The only guy who played well for them was Jordan Reed. Vernon Davis here too, 2 receptions, 73 yards and a touchdown. So the tight ends really shined here.
Yeah, and Josh Doxson, he had an okay game. He saw 10 targets, got 6 of them for 66 yards, which that's okay. And especially especially for a guy like Josh Doxson, who, he hasn't shown consistency yet to this point in his career. So you like seeing that in this game. Like you said, Vernon Davis and Jordan Reed. Jordan Reed, you like seeing this. He's starting to finally come on. He's getting the targets. He's starting to get used. And he's the Redskins' best, I think, offensive threat at this point. And he's their best red zone threat, even though Vernon got the touchdown on that big play. But, that's what you like to see with McCoy back there. He's getting the targets. So I think it's safe to start Reed going forward. He's their guy that they seem to be targeting going to.
Yeah, 2 good weeks for him in a row. Got the touchdown last week, so it's definitely encouraging for Reed owners out there. And Doxson, what the stat line doesn't show is he made some nice grabs in this game.
Yeah,
so.
I'm sorry, not to cut you off, but one thing I wanted to mention as well about Jordan Reed, people probably wouldn't, or I don't know if they would notice or not, he has 78 targets on the season. There's only
the third most in the league?
Third most in the league. There's only 2 tight ends that have more targets than Jordan Reed. That's Zach Ertz and Travis Kelce. So Jordan Reed has 78 targets, and his last 4 games, his targets 12, 6, 6, 11. So, he's giving you a great floor. This is a guy that's you got to start going forward.
Definitely. And let's move into the night game from yesterday. Saints-Falcons. I think everyone thought this was going to be a closer game, more of a shootout, but the Saints really jumped on top of them early, and they didn't let up off the gas. 31-17, they got this win at home. What did you make of this one?
Drew Brees, he more this season than any other season before. His efficiency is sticking out. He's not putting up the huge 300 yards. He is doing that, but not, every game like he used to. He's being more efficient this season. He's only threw the ball 22 times, completed 15 of them for 171 yards, but 4 touchdowns. He did have the pick, but it's only his 2nd pick of the season. And he's just being super efficient to this point, into where the Saints are just a well-oiled machine, man, with the running backs, receivers, and the defense they have now. They're going to be tough to stop. Kamara got off to a hot start, and you thought he was going to have a pretty big game. Still gave you 89 yards rushing, and he only gave you 9 yards receiving. Didn't get in the end zone. Kamara, this is not a good game for him, but that's saying something when the guy puts up 98 yards and that's his low game of the season. Yeah,
this is one of those games where they just didn't need a lot from him. It's a Drew Brees game. You're used to seeing the running backs do a little bit more here, but Brees was on fire in this game, and he lit the Falcons up.
Yeah, if you're a Saints owner, it was a little bit disappointing day for you because Ingram and Kamara didn't get in the end zone, and either did Mike Thomas. None of the big guys did. It was all these random guys, Dan Arnold, Tommy Lee Lewis, Austin Carr, Kirkwood. They all caught touchdowns from Drew Brees, which is good as the Brees owner, but yeah, none of the guys you expected to have big games here really did. Michael Thomas only had 38 yards receiving. I thought Ben Watson would be an okay play here. Only had 1 catch for 20 yards, so it's one of those games for the Saints where they're so good. They don't have to get their guys involved, and they still win against the Falcons team who they're on a slide. And they're not as good as they have been in previous years, but they can still put up points. So it just shows you how complete the Saints are.
Yeah, no Traquan Smith in this game, coming off a big game last week. So he sat out this week, which kind of opened the door for some of these other guys to contribute. On the Falcons side of the ball, I mean, really what sticks out is the run game has not been able to get going here. Coleman gave you the touchdown, but he only gave you 6 yards on 8 carries.
And it was a garbage time touchdown at the very end of the game. He caught it and got in there. So, yeah, you're happy about it, but yeah, it was just a lucky touchdown.
Yeah, it went from a very disappointing day for him to a, okay, I'll take that kind of day. He hasn't been great this year. We've talked about this, in previous podcast episodes. He just doesn't look the same as he has in previous seasons. They're mixing in Ito Smith, so he's not just getting all of the carries and all of the looks. I'm not sure what to make of Coleman right now, but this is the tough matchup. The Saints are great against running backs here. They put up points. They make you abandon the run game.
Yeah, the Falcons offense, they've just been struggling this season to where they're putting up points, but they're not as consistent as in the past, and they're not getting their guys, going, like you said, with Coleman. Julio Jones had a big game here, 11 catches, 147 yards. Didn't get in the end zone, but it's a pretty Julio game right there. Big yardage. It's what you expect from him. Saw a lot of targets. Calvin Ridley had a big game. 13 targets, 8 catches, 93 yards, and a touchdown.
He almost had that second touchdown, fumbled it right there on the doorstep of the end zone.
It was a big play right there. That was a big fumble. And then Mohamed Sanu, he got started early, and then he kind of sputtered off, didn't really do much, but he still gave you 74 yards, so not a bad game here. But yeah, the Falcons, they're kind of struggling right now, and it's one of those teams where outside of Julio, Calvin Ridley, I love the guy's talent. He's good, but he's still not quite consistent enough. So you're still a little bit up and down with some of these Falcons players, how they've played this season.
Yeah, I think aside from Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, and you have to throw Coleman in there too, those are really the guys you're starting every week, but you don't feel great about it. Hooper, I expected a bigger day from, 5 receptions for 31 yards, so they kind of stifled him. Really, the Saints just, both sides of the ball were on fire. Defense looked absolutely awesome yesterday. All right, Tom, let's look forward to Sunday's games here and talk about what you like in these matchups. Raiders take on the Ravens in Baltimore here. Lamar Jackson will get the start again, most likely for the Ravens. It's hard to like anybody on the Raiders side of the ball. Jared Cook, you like him because they don't have a lot of options there. You stay away from the run game here because the Baltimore Ravens are absolutely dominant against running backs. Is there anybody else we're missing here?
No, it's just Cook. I think that's really their only choice. Like you said, the Raiders, they're number one against the running backs, and I don't like Doug Martin, and I thought Jalen Richard would be maybe an okay play, but I'm staying away from all these guys. They've given up the fewest receiving yards to running backs and only 2 receiving touchdowns. So I don't think you can count on Jalen Richard or Doug Martin in this game. But yeah, Jared Cook, I think on the Raiders side is pretty much the only safe play for you.
What about the Ravens?
Well, you got to start Lamar Jackson here. The Raiders are bad against the run. I think he should be in store for a good game here. I'm still not sure about him as a passer, but I expect more of the same from like they did last week where he's just running the ball all day. And then Gus Edwards, I like him too. Against this Raiders run defense, they're bad. So I expect a heavy dose of Lamar Jackson and Gus Edwards. I'm not starting any Ravens receiver until I got to see more out of Lamar Jackson. I mean, I wouldn't feel safe really starting any of these guys probably this whole season.
Yeah, I mean, for me, even if Flacco's out there, I'm still nervous to start any of those receivers. I mean, John Brown's been the only one who's had really much success, and that was early in the season. We haven't really seen that. And so, yeah, Gus Edwards, I think you expect a really big day from him. I'm worried about Lamar Jackson. He's too one-dimensional. Yeah, he's a great talent running the ball. He's obviously very fast. But it scares me that he can't throw the ball. And I mean, the Raiders are a terrible defense. That's the only, bright side here. Let's go Jags Bills. They're playing in Buffalo. Leonard Fournette obviously looking better now. I was worried about him coming off his injury. He's proven me wrong. He's carried the ball for 20-plus times in these past 2 games. He looks like a monster, but he's got a tougher matchup here. The Bills' defense, they're no slouch. So I think you expect them to try and ride Fournette as usual. I think that you stay away from Bortles. I don't think you trust any of these receivers either. None of them have really shined much. Moncrief, for me, would be the only one that if I was absolutely desperate and I had to play, I would play him. But I don't feel great about that.
Yeah, I expect a big day for Leonard Fournette, mainly because of the volume. I don't see the Jags really going anywhere else. They're going to have to feed Leonard Fournette. He's starting to come on strong, it looks like. So I expect a big day from him. And on the Bills side, I don't like anybody really on the Bills side. McCoy is in store for a tough matchup, so I do not like him. I like the fact that the Bills are at home, but that's still not enough to start. I think Josh Allen's supposed to start this game, right? Which In all honesty, other than DFS play, I wouldn't play him. But in DFS, he might be an okay play only because Jacksonville, they've given up the 5th most rushing yards to QB, and Josh Allen runs a little bit. So I could see him having a little success. But, I mean, other than some random DFS lineup, I wouldn't start Josh Allen. It's more of just a random, dart throw, see if something happens there. But other than that, it's really, you're looking at Leonard Fournette, and there's not a whole lot of relevance here otherwise.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Better game here for fantasy purposes. Seahawks take on the Panthers in Carolina. I know you talked about liking Cam Newton a lot. How do you feel about Russell Wilson in this matchup?
I do like Russell Wilson, but I actually expect this to be a tough game for him. I think if he doesn't get going rushing, I think it's going to be a bad game for him. Carolina's defense is good. They're at home. So I can see, him struggling to have a big game here. I do like Tyler Lockett, and I can see him getting open for some, deep, a couple deep plays. But other than that, I think on that side of the ball, Chris Carson as well, is a start. But I don't expect a big day from the Seahawks here. I think the Panthers are going to win this game. I don't expect it to be an easy win for them, but I just think it's going to be kind of a grinded out, low scoring game. Like I said earlier, I think Cam Newton's kind of going to just control this game.
Who do you like more in this game? David Moore or Devin Funchess?
Devin Funchess.
Okay, and what about DJ Moore or Tyler Lockett?
Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, we've seen some good stuff from DJ Moore lately. They seem to be going to him more, letting him catch the ball and make plays with his legs. He's very good after the catch, very explosive, 0 to 60 kind of guy. So I think that he could have a big game here. I think the Panthers, if they're smart, they continue to get him more involved. It makes the Panthers a more dynamic offense when they use him. So I hope to see him get more involved or be used the way he has been these past couple games.
Yeah, another guy I want to mention who I think is going to have a good game here, relative to the position, is Nick Vannett at tight end. Panthers are worst against tight end in terms of fantasy points per game on average, and they've given up 9 touchdowns to tight end, more than any team in the league. So, and that's what Nick Vannett's going to give you. He really is the true definition of the boomer bust, touchdown dependent tight end. But I can see rolling him out here and being a good start.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. On the flip side of that, the tight end discussion there, Greg Olsen, you got to love him because what he means to this team, what he means to Cam Newton and the rapport that he has with him, obviously. But this is a tough matchup for him. The Seahawks are great against tight ends, so it's going to be a little tougher for him. He saved his week last week with the touchdown, so I'm a little scared of him. Of course, if you own him, there's no way you're not starting him.
Yeah, you're right. They are very good against tight ends. They're only getting up 3 touchdowns on the season. But, it's Greg Olsen and they're at home, so that definitely makes a difference. If it was at Seattle, I'd be a lot more nervous about it. The fact that they're at Carolina, I like it better. But, yeah, definitely temper expectations. Wouldn't expect a huge day from Olsen.
And from the running backs here, I know it's hard to guess. It's most likely going to be Chris Carson.
But yeah, it's going to be Chris Carson.
Insert, say Mike Davis gets off hot, Rashad Penny, etc. Would you rather take said RB for Seattle, or would you rather have McCaffrey?
Well, you got to take McCaffrey. I mean, he's just been too consistent. Not to mention Carolina's run defense is good.
All right, let's talk about the Browns and Bengals. They're playing in Cincinnati. Bengals hoping to get AJ Green back this week.
Yeah, it's truly 50-50 right now. He hasn't practiced all week. Marvin Lewis said he hopes he practices tomorrow, which is Saturday. So you got to hope he gets it in, or else he's not going to play. At this point, I think he's not going to play.
If he does play, how confident can you feel in him?
Well, if he plays, you're going to have to roll him out there. It's AJ Green. He's too talented. He's one of those guys, one play makes his whole day off of a deep bomb. Him and Andy Dalton have such good chemistry, and Andy Dalton throws to him when he's out there. So if he plays, you got to play him.
I mean, for me, the biggest thing is that if he plays, I really like Boyd a lot more. I mean, Tyler Boyd has been awesome when AJ Green's out on the field. He's been okay with him on the sideline. So if Green does play, I really like Boyd. That's going to bump him up a lot for me. Mixon, how do you feel about him in this game?
I expect Joe Mixon to have a big game here. I think he's going to feast, honestly. The Browns are bad against the run. They've given up 12 touchdowns, rushing touchdowns, so I think Joe Mixon's in store for a big game.
And on the Browns side of the ball, we like Nick Chubb a lot. He gets a good matchup here against a bad run defense in the Bengals. Is there anybody else here? Does Mayfield strike you as an okay play this week, or how do you feel about him?
Mayfield's definitely streamer worthy. I think he should be in store for a big game here. Cincinnati Bengals, in terms of average fantasy points per game, are second worst in the league. Only Bucks give up more. So I think Baker Mayfield's definitely in store for a stream here. And I actually like a lot of the Browns guys. You said you didn't like Jarvis. I like Jarvis Landry this week. He's seen the targets all season. He just hasn't done much with them. So against this kind of defense, how bad the Bengals have been against the receiver, I think that he's in store for a decent game here. And then David Njoku as well. So Baker Mayfield to me is a good stream. Pretty much all the Browns are. Chubb, Baker, I like Jarvis, Njoku. So I like a lot of the Browns this week.
Would you rather play Njoku or Uzama?
Njoku.
All right. Let's go Patriots Jets. Playing in New York. These teams always seem to play each other tough. So you're not excited about it because, let's be honest, the Jets are pretty awful. Is there anybody on the Jets that you can feel good about? Anybody like the running backs here, Crowell?
At first I thought Herndon would be an okay play. And I still think that if you're going to roll a Jet, might be Chris Herndon, but I don't think you can get excited about any of these guys. The Jets offense is bad. I think the Patriots defense is in store for a big game here. I know it's in New York, or New Jersey where they play, but this is tough for me. I think if you're looking at this game, I don't see how you can really start any Jet with confidence. If I had to pick somebody, like I said, it would be Chris Herndon. That's more relative to position at tight end where it is. So I think that's about it, but I'm not excited about it. I'm not excited about any of the Jets, really.
Yeah, I hope to see Elijah McGuire continue to get touches. I'd like to see him out-touch Crowell in this game, but we'll see who has the hot hand to start off, if either of them. I also like Quincy Enunwa this week. He hasn't done much this season, but he's a competitive guy. He can be a good fantasy play, and I think this is a matchup that we could see that happen. On the Patriots side of the ball here, Michel, questionable coming into this game. If he plays, you fire him up, no doubt. Tom Brady should have a nice day as well. Gronk, you got to feel really good about. We haven't seen him in 4 weeks, as we mentioned earlier in the podcast. I expect him to be out there to be the number one tight end this week.
Oh, that's not a stretch because it's Gronk, and I could easily see that, but I just don't think the Patriots are going to have to do a whole lot to win. Like I said earlier, I see him getting in the end zone because he's back and healthy, or somewhat healthy enough to play, I should say. And I can see them trying to get him going and getting him in the end zone. But I don't expect a huge game from Gronk, personally.
All right, Giants-Eagles, another division game here. As bad as the Giants have been, they're 1 game behind the Eagles. 3 games out from the division lead. So it's a really tight division here. It looked like the season was almost all but over for these guys. But here they come. They've got Saquon Barkley playing awesome. They've got Eli Manning playing better, mainly because their line has been able to keep him off the ground, give him a little bit more time. We like these guys, right? We like, obviously, the studs here. We like Beckham. We like Saquon. There's not much conversation there. What about these secondary guys? I know you don't like Ingram this week. You touched on that at the beginning, but what about Sterling Shepard?
I do like Sterling Shepard this week because the Eagles are so bad against receiver. The one thing that makes me a little nervous about his last 2 games, he has 3 targets and then 2 targets. So that does make me a little nervous. But again, the Eagles are so bad and they might be a little keyed in on Saquon and Odell. So I could see Sterling Shepard having a decent game here. But yeah, I definitely expect a big game from Odell. Like you were saying earlier, the Eagles have just been terrible against receiver. Saquon, he's gonna have a big game because of how talented he is, and he's gonna see the volume. But the Eagles are good against the run. We'll see how much they can bottle him up here.
What about the Eagles side of the ball? Wentz has not been playing well lately. We saw them get embarrassed last week against the Saints. I mean, who do you like here this week?
Bounce back for Wentz. He's gonna have a big game here, I think. At home, division rival. He knows he hasn't been playing well. I expect a big game from Carson Wentz here.
So what does that mean for the receivers? Jeffrey, Tate,
well,
Aguilar.
Ertz is a great play, obviously. You're not going to sit Zach Ertz, so I expect a big game from him. I do like Alshon Jeffrey. I'm not sure about Aguilar. I'm nervous to start him. I think he's a low 3 for me.
Is this the game where we see Tate show up from a fantasy perspective?
I don't think so, honestly. The Giants have been pretty good against the receiver this year. And Tate just seems to be, I can see them trying to get him involved more. And I do think Carson Wentz has a good game here. So I can see him getting, involved a little bit, but I just don't expect a huge game from Tate. And until he gets more familiar with that offense, I don't feel comfortable with it.
Yeah. Doug Peterson has a pretty big book when it comes to offensive plays. So you got to take that into consideration on why you haven't seen him involved as much. So I don't know, it's anybody's guess, whether it's him or it's Aguilar. Jeffrey's got to be definitely the one I have highest ranked out of these receivers just because of his size and, what he can do for a guy like Carson Wentz. So the other two, kind of a toss-up for me. I don't feel great about either of them. And the run game here, you expecting anything from the Eagles?
Yeah, I was just going to say, don't forget about Josh Adams. The Giants are mediocre against the run. I think Josh Adams is in store for a pretty good day here. I'd say like a low RB2 day to mid RB2.
Let's talk 49ers, Buccaneers. Not a sexy game here. Nick Mullins will get the start again for the 49ers. Big day for Kittle. You can expect that. I expect a big day from Breda. He should have a good matchup here as well. If he's not an RB1, I'd be surprised.
Tampa Bay's given up the most rush touchdowns this season, so I think Breda's in store for a big game.
He's been breaking off big plays, so I really like him this week. Hard not to. Anybody else on the Niners worth starting? Is Mullins worth a stream against this terrible Tampa Bay defense?
Yeah, he is. The Tampa Bay, they're on average fantasy points per game. They're number one worst against. They give it the most. Quarterbacks this season against Tampa Bay Buccaneers have thrown 25 touchdowns to 1 interception. So Nick Mullins, I think, is definitely worth a start. The fact that they're at Tampa Bay maybe makes you a little bit nervous, but this Tampa Bay defense hasn't stopped anybody all year. So in terms of a decent, okay stream, I like Nick Mullins here. I think he's actually a pretty good play. And like you said, Kittle should be good, Breida's good, and I think Goodwin can get free for a touchdown here. Just Tampa Bay, they're just so bad on defense, and they're really bad against every position.
And on the Bucs side, how about the run game here?
I'm actually staying away. San Francisco's good against the run. I think they've given up the 10th fewest rushing yards this season.
And Peyton Barber hasn't been great. He's been good here and there with the volume, but he's not exceptionally talented. He just kind of gets the carries.
Yeah, it's Tampa Bay. They throw the ball, especially with Jameis back there. He's going to throw the ball over the yard, and you just can't trust Peyton Barber. He had a good game last week. We said he would have a good game. I thought, it's a good matchup, but this is not a good matchup. Like I said, I said 10th. They're the 11th fewest rushing yards in the league. So I'm staying away. There's not enough consistent handoffs for Peyton Barber for you to sit there and really trust him.
Yeah, and in the pass game here, they lose a big piece of their offense, of their red zone offense, I should say, in O.J. Howard, who's been put on IR after last week. So a big bump for Cameron Brate, at least in his opportunity. We'll see how much he's able to produce. There's still a lot of mouths to feed here. We still have Mike Evans, Deshaun Jackson, Chris Godwin. So there's a lot going on here. How good can you feel about these guys? Rank these receivers for me. We do this almost every week, but hit them again.
Well, I don't know how much it's changing week to week. Mike Evans is number one. Are you talking about just for the Bucs or both teams?
Bucs.
So Mike Evans is number one. I think you still got to go Deshaun Jackson number two, mainly off the potential. And with Jameis there, I do like him better. And Chris Godwin's number three. And I've talked about it before. I think Fitz and Godwin have the better chemistry. And then when Jameis comes in there, it's more of Jameis and Deshaun Jackson because he's got that big arm. He's going to throw it deep. He's not scared to throw it deep. Either is Fitzpatrick, don't get me wrong, but Jameis seems to just have a better connection. So I would go Mike Evans, Deshaun Jackson, then Chris Godwin. And Cameron Brate, you're starting him guaranteed. And I think he should be in store for an okay game here. The 49ers defense has been pretty good against tight end. They've only given up 4 touchdowns this season, so they've been okay against the tight end, but you got to look at it like this. He's the number one guy there now. No O.J. Howard. He's going to get everything. And him and Jameis definitely have good connection. He throws to him a lot. He's a big red zone threat there. After Mike Evans, he's definitely their next best red zone threat. So, if you grab Cameron Brate, if he's somehow still on waivers, but start Cameron Brate here. He should have a good game. And again, it's all relative to tight end position. Brate, I think, gets in the end zone. Do I expect him to get a lot of yardage? No. But if he gets in the end zone, it's a good game.
All right, let's talk Cardinals-Chargers playing in L.A. How do you feel about David Johnson in this matchup?
So I like David Johnson. A little bit of a tougher matchup because the Chargers, they're at home. I don't know how much of a home field advantage they really do have, but good defense. But David Johnson at this point, you're not going to sit him how the running back he is where you drafted him, but he's been coming on hot lately. And then, believe it or not, the Chargers they've given up the third most receiving yards to running backs. Only the Falcons and Chiefs have given up more. So I think Johnson's going to be in store for a big game here. He's involved in this offense, especially since Byron Leftwich has taken over. So combined yardage, I expect him to have a good game here.
What about a guy like Christian Kirk in this matchup? Would you rather play him or Mike Williams?
I'm taking Mike Williams. I know I said I don't like Phillip Rivers, but I definitely trust Phillip Rivers more than Josh Rosen. And this matchup is not good both ways, but I take Mike Williams and Rivers over Rosen and Kirk in this game.
And Keenan Allen, you think he puts up receiver 1 numbers this week in this matchup?
I think this is, it'd be a low one because of the volume he sees, but I'd be more expecting kind of a high 2, just a mediocre game here, maybe like 80 yards, not getting in the end zone. But Keenan Allen, he's one of those guys you're going to plug in and get that safe play. I'm not expecting a huge day against the Cards D.
Yeah, and we've also seen Tyrell Williams cool off as well. hard to feel confident starting him. He's truly a boomer bust wide receiver.
Him and Mike Williams, the same guy. They're both hard to trust. You know, we like Tyrell because of his connection and chemistry with Phillip a little bit, just because he's been there. But it's still, both the guys are very similar. And I mean, you know, it's a dart throw if you're playing either one of these guys.
All right, let's talk about Dolphins Colts. Looks like Tannehill will be back this week. These two teams are both 5-5. They're playing in Indianapolis. For me, the thing that sticks out is how good Andrew Luck has been playing, how many points the Colts are capable of putting up with him out there, fully healthy. Mac, fully healthy. Like the Colts in this matchup here. Aside from T.Y. Hilton, Mac, Luck, I don't know how to feel great about anybody. What do you think about Ebron in this matchup? Do you think he bounces back and gets in the end zone here?
You know, I can see him getting in the end zone here. The Dolphins have given up 5 touchdowns to the tight end, but I'm not really banking on that. I don't expect that. I just think that the Colts, it's going to be a huge Marlon Mack day. He's going to run all over this Dolphins defense. They've been bad. They cannot stop the run. So I can definitely see Ebron getting in the end zone, but I wouldn't expect a big day from him. Just a kind of a easy day. I don't think the Colts are going to have to do a lot to win this game. I expect really their Marlon Mack to kind of take over, their running game take over, and their defense, I think, is a good play this week against the Dolphins. Tannehill coming off the injury. Obviously, you know, he's a guy who can put up some points, but he can also throw some picks. We all know that. And they just don't have a lot of weapons. I mean, you know, Jakeem Grant out. I know Kenny Stills is still there, but really that's you know.
Devontae Parker, been up and down. We've seen him make some big plays, but
yeah, that's the thing. You know, they just don't have a lot of consistent weapons for Tannehill, so it's tough to trust these guys. So at least on the Colts side, I expect a huge day from Mack and, you know, kind of an okay day for Ebron. Don't expect a big day from T.Y. Hilton. I think he's a low wide receiver too, personally. I just don't think the Colts are going to have to do a whole lot here to kind of win this game.
I think I like T.Y. a little bit more than you. I think you're right. I don't think they have to do a lot to win this game, but I see him and Luck connecting on a big play. You know, it's kind of the usual for these two guys. What about the run game, though, in Miami? You expect anything from Frank Gore or Kenyon Drake here?
I expect very pedestrian day from both of these guys. The Colts defense has been good against the run. They're at Indianapolis. They've only given up 4 rushing touchdowns this season. The Colts defense, they've only given up 2 receiving touchdowns this season to running backs. So I think this is a stout defense. I think the whole team is kind of playing on the rise. Like, you know, the Colts, they're just kind of getting hot at the right moment, sort of like the Cowboys, or the team's kind of coming together as a whole. So I think they're going to shut them down. I don't expect a big day from Gore or from Kenyon Drake. And with the Dolphins, you never know what they're going to do, especially with Tannehill back. You really don't know what's going on. So it's just hard to trust any of these guys on the Dolphins side. It really is.
Yeah. Let's talk Steelers-Broncos. Broncos coming off a big win here against the Chargers. That was a tough matchup for them, but they were able to come out with a good win. How do you feel about a guy like Phillip Lindsay against this Pittsburgh defense?
So I'm nervous about it. I don't expect a huge day from him here. I think it's going to be a low RB2 type day. The Steelers defense is good against the run. The fact that they are at Denver makes me like it a little more. And the fact that, you know, they're going to lean on Phillip Lindsay a little bit. It seems like they've been getting him more and more involved lately, and they realize what kind of player he is. But I don't expect a huge day from him. Like I said, low to mid RB2 day for me, what I think he's going to give you.
We've got to talk about Emmanuel Sanders. Guy's been playing awesome all season. Definitely took a hit since Demaryius Thomas has left. Call it coincidence, call it what you will, but he has not been playing at the level that he was before Thomas left town.
Yeah, I still think he's in store for an okay game here. It's one of those things where the guy's going to get the volume, so the matchup is tough. The Steelers are good against the receiver, but the fact that they're at Denver, and again, he's going to see the volume. You like that. So I think he's still in store for an okay game here. Courtland Sutton's a guy who I think you could actually roll out, and he's definitely a risky play, no doubt, but he's got such talent and such ability that I think he can roll out and be a sneaky start here. I actually could see him getting, you know, open for a big play here. So not the worst start in my opinion. And then I do like Jeff Hireman too, the tight end, because Case Keenum seems to throw the guy a lot, and we mention it all the time. You know, tight end. You know, you got to find that guy, and he's not a bad play.
Yeah, if you lost OJ Howard and you're looking to get a tight end, we like Nick Vannett. He's a good pickup who should be out there. This is another guy that I like a lot. As you mentioned, Keenum does tend to look at him. You know, you have to temper your expectations. I don't think this is a guy who's necessarily a good touchdown threat, but he seems to get plenty of catches and get plenty of yards to at least be a decent play.
Yeah, Pittsburgh Steelers giving up 11th most receiving yards to the tight end, so that's something, you know, it's a plus matchup for him.
And on the Steelers side of the ball, you know, these receivers are no-brainer locked and loaded every week. Juju Smith-Schuster, Antonio Brown, both looking good. Big Ben's been looking good. James Conner coming off an ugly week. How good can you feel about him in this matchup?
Yeah, I like him in this matchup. So I look at it like this. Roethlisberger's on the road. Home road splits, we know all about that. They're going to lean on the running back. In terms of average fantasy points per game, Broncos are the 10th worst in what they give up to the running back. So only 9 teams give up more to the running back. So I actually like James Conner. I think a bounce back here. And again, with Ben and his road splits, those are real. At Denver, which is a tough place to play, I think that James Conner is in store for a big game.
Let's go Packers-Vikings. Sunday night game. Division game here. Close record between these two teams. 4-5-1 for the Packers. 5-4-1 for the Vikings. It was a great close game last time. I expect another one here. They are playing in Minnesota. Dalvin Cook getting healthier and healthier. You got to wonder if this is a game where he has some big plays and is a good fantasy play.
Yeah, if there's a game where he's going to be a good play, you would think it's going to be this one against the Packers. But I'm still nervous about it, and it makes me more nervous thinking about if the Packers get out to some kind of lead, the Vikings abandoning the run a little bit. Now, the fact that this is in Minnesota and Rodgers hasn't been his usual self this season, and that defense can get after him, I do see it being a close game. So I do like Dalvin Cook in this game, but I think he's a mid RB2 this week.
And you got to like the receivers for the Vikings here. We saw Diggs have a big game last week. Thielen's had an awesome season so far. If this is a high-scoring game, if it's a close game, these guys should both be in line for good fantasy days.
Yeah, the Packers are bad against the receiver. They're the fifth worst team in terms of average fantasy points per game. They've given up 14 touchdowns receiving. This is a really plus matchup, and they're at Minnesota. So you love Diggs and Thielen this week. I like Diggs better. I think he has a bigger game.
Who has a bigger fantasy day, Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins?
Got to go Aaron Rodgers. Kirk Cousins has just been very mediocre this season. He hasn't been bad, but he just hasn't been explosive. Aaron Rodgers, you could say the same. He hasn't been the same old Aaron Rodgers, but a poor Aaron Rodgers is better than a poor Kirk Cousins. I mean, you know what I mean? A mediocre Aaron Rodgers, I'll take that all day over Kirk Cousins. You know, his ceiling is just so much higher. So I'll go Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, and the Packers, they really have their back up against the wall as far as fighting for a playoff position. I mean, they got to win these games, all of these games, and it's really going to come down to him, obviously. Aaron Jones has been playing well. I think he's got a tougher matchup here in Minnesota.
This matchup scares me for Aaron Jones. Like, I get you're not going to sit the guy because of what he's done, but, I mean, Minnesota's given up the fifth fewest rushing yards. They've only given up 2 rushing touchdowns the whole season. So, look, Aaron Jones for me, I'm nervous about it, man, and I get it. You don't want to sit a guy like this, but
you got to play him.
It's nervous. It's a really tough matchup at Minnesota.
Yeah, I think he's an RB2 this week and probably a low RB2 for me. But I do like Aaron Rodgers. Devontae Adams having a monster season. Expect more of that this week. He's been the only guy that Aaron Rodgers can actually count on. What about Jimmy Graham?
Yeah, I don't like it. I know they said he looked good in practice, but you got to think about it like this. He just hasn't really done much this whole season with a good thumb. So, I mean, the guy coming in banged up and having the bad thumb, that makes me nervous. All right. So I'm not, I would be looking for other options if I was the Jimmy Graham owner. The Vikings have only given up 3 touchdowns to the tight end this whole season. And I think Jimmy Graham has 2 on the whole season, maybe 3. So it's not a good matchup here with the broken thumb. So I'm staying away. I'd be looking at other options.
A guy who burned a lot of fantasy owners last week was Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who got the go. He was the number 2 out there with Randall Cobb sitting out. Randall Cobb sounds like he's probably going to sit this week out as well, but it's scary. He's been good before last week. He's been pretty good. What do you think about him this week coming into this matchup?
This one it scares me because of the Vikings and their defense. But that being said, I actually think he's a good play here because of their lack of weapons. It's Jimmy Graham is hurt. Devontae Adams is going to do what he does, but we think that Aaron Jones will be bottled up. So I do like Valdes-Scantling because I think he has an option or an opportunity to get open here. So, I mean, for me, the guys I like the best in the Packers are Devontae Adams and then Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I think he's in store. He could do something here because, I don't like the other options here. So I actually like him.
All right, let's go to the Monday night game. Tennessee Titans go down to Houston to take on the Texans. It's hard to like much about the Tennessee Titans right now. We've seen a little bit of good from all these guys.
Look,
from Corey Davis, Dion Lewis, Mariota at times. Do you expect anything from these guys in this matchup?
No, look, and this is one of those things where I might regret saying this come next week and I might look like a fool, but this is one of those games where I feel pretty safe in saying I think you should probably sit all the Tennessee Titans you have. Like, Mariota really probably shouldn't be starting in a 12-man league at this point. I know he had a couple good games, but there's much better options out there. Derrick Henry's had a couple good games, but you got other options. Dion Lewis, I like, but just Houston Texans defense is for real at home in Houston. So I just don't like any of the Tennessee Titans. I think Corey Davis is going to have a hard time getting anything going here. So I'm staying away from all Titans. There's nothing to get excited about there. We really don't, unless maybe you want to consider throwing Ryan Suckup in there as getting you some field goals, because they're not going to score much in my opinion. So I'm really nervous about all the Titans. On the Texans side, I don't expect a big day from Lamar Miller. I think Deshaun Watson's just going to be okay. Again, I've had this theme the whole podcast, but I feel like he's just not going to have to do much. I think DeAndre Hopkins can get going here a little bit, but that's more based off the volume he sees. So I don't see a huge day for any of the Texans. I think they're just going to not have to do a lot and win. I could just see this being a big defensive day, and then DeAndre Hopkins kind of doing what he does. I could see him 80 yards and a touchdown, which is pretty much par for the course for a guy like that. But otherwise, on the Texans, I'm a little bit scared off Lamar Miller. And then if Kiki Kuti plays, I'm okay with that at flex. But if you're waiting until Monday night to flex him against the Titans, I don't know about that. I mean, that's a little bit risky in my opinion.
Would you rather play Demaryius Thomas or Kiki?
That one's tough. I mean, from what I've seen at this point, I think I'd have to say Kiki only because of his upside and his explosiveness. Bill O'Brien did come out this past week and said it's his fault. He needs to get him involved more, and he's going to start getting him involved more, Demaryius. So I could see him getting going, but I just, with his upside, with Deshaun, the kind of quarterback he is, the playmaker he is, I have to take Kiki.
Yeah, I like that. I have to agree with you there. We got to see more from Thomas before you feel really comfortable about starting him. He's coming off a game where he put up 0 yards, 0 receptions. So you got to be scared about that. You're starting a guy who gives you a dud with his talent.
Especially, when off that Denver offense without Case Keenum, now he's on that Houston offense with a guy like Deshaun Watson back there. You really just can't have games like that.
Yeah, it's been strange. Him and Golden Tate, two of the, bigger name receivers that got traded right before the deadline. They're in great fantasy positions here to put up points, but you got to remember they're coming into the season halfway through the year trying to pick up these offenses on the fly and get out there and be effective. So it's been a challenge for these guys, and if you're a fantasy owner, it's been a headache because you need these guys.
Yeah, and it is. I agree with everything you're saying. I will say this: if you own both these guys, I think you need to hold on to these guys. Both of them their values should just go up. Like Josh just mentioned, they got to get comfortable. They got to get back in the, figure out the playbook, figure out all the language for the offense they're on now. And Bill O'Brien himself said he needs to get involved more. Golden Tate needs to get involved more in Philly. They know that there. So I think that both these guys, you need to hold on to these guys. These are solid veterans who can, help your fantasy team. So hold on to these guys.
Yeah, and I absolutely think that both of these guys are going to get it going. And I think they're going to be playing well for you right at the right time, right when playoffs hit for fantasy, right when the championship match hits. There is a reason these teams went out and made these trades. They needed these receivers. They needed the talent at that position. You just got to give them a little time to meld with the offense, with the playbook, and their new quarterbacks. And I think that they'll have a good opportunity. And I think you'll see, like Bill O'Brien said, you'll see these coordinators and these head coaches come out and make a concerted effort to get these guys going because they need to get them going for the playoffs. That wraps it up for this episode of the Fantasy Den. Thank you guys again for listening. We really appreciate the support. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes. You can also catch us on Spotify, Google Play, and Stitcher Radio. So thanks again, guys. Also, shout out to our sponsors, Buffalo Boxing Club. Check them out on Instagram and buffaloboxingclub.com. And make sure to go to RotoAssurance. Insure your fantasy football players. Make sure you get your league feedback, whether it's daily fantasy or season long. They're still selling insurance on season long fantasy players. So do that up. Secure your fantasy league dues. And don't forget, when you go to RotoAssurance, use the code FANTASYDEN, all caps, all one word. Get 20% off your purchase. You can't beat that, guys. Play smart. Thanks again, guys. We'll catch you next time.